Okay, I think we're live. It says you are live, so I'll believe the system.
Yeah, let's believe whatever the screen says.
What choice do we have? So I hope you all can hear me. I'm going to go to the room, and yes, we got some people here as well. That's great. Excellent. So 35 people.
Yeah, talking to ourselves is boring.
Yeah, but let's get going. You know, it's we're going to do something different here, folks. A lot of these webinars, we like to pick a number. You know, like the 10 fill in the blank, right? The 10 this, the 10 best, or the 10 worst, or whatever. But with 10, we calculated last time, if we take 60 minutes and divide by 10, plus introductions, plus time at the beginning and the end, our tack time for every subject is just a few minutes, right? So we're oftentimes kind of stressed and watching the clock. So we cut it down this time. So this subject of doubling your inventory turns, we could have come up with 10 things you can do easily, but we picked the four good ones, and hopefully we can be not as rushed, maybe get done a little earlier. I know we're all busy, so we don't necessarily all want to stay to the last minute, and that'll give us more time then to get through the four subjects. Okay. I'm Richard Ron.
A little more time to discuss them a little more in depth, and also making sure that we let everybody go in 1 hour and people don't start dropping.
Or less, yeah. I'm Richard Ron. I'm principal with Leonardo Group Americas. I'm here with Gerard Leone, also co-principal. So welcome, everyone. And this is a great subject. And before we dive into the four techniques that we want to cover with you, four methods, we just wanted to do a little introduction. Introducing the subject. So who cares is one question. Why is doubling the inventory important?
And the reason why it's so important is because there's money in it, and money that you as a company had to invest to acquire that inventory. And unless you take that inventory and turn it into products, sell it, somebody buys it, you're going to have to reinvest in that. So doubling your inventory turns suggests that you are cutting your inventory in half, and that is money that you do not have to reinvest. It's a one-time injection of cash for your company.
Hey, everyone. Give us a little note in the chat box that you can hear us and see us. We got a little message saying you're offline. I don't know what it means because it seems like we're online.
But, you forgot the message. You must be online.
Yeah. So if you can hear and see us, just working now. Okay, got a message.
Okay.
Working. All right. That's good.
We're beginning to see folks from places other than the U.S. Monterrey. What a beautiful place that is.
India. Great.
India, kind of a big place. Be a little more specific.
This is one of the most interesting parts of these webinars, is seeing where everyone is from.
Yeah.
Juárez, Mexico. Bienvenido.
Yeah, Juárez, I visited there. Monterrey, I've been there.
Yeah.
Brazil again, big place. Porto Alegre, Montenegro, Horizontina. What are we talking about? Excellent. So looks like we are live.
National group here.
Yeah. First question: who cares? Everybody does.
Okay. Now the question is:
friends of mine in hospitals, you care, and you care a lot, because a lot of money is tied in there, and your management team sometimes doesn't really understand that money is tied there. So when they start looking for money, they start looking for people, and that's a wrong place to look for savings. Yeah.
So the idea here is, if you buy inventory, right, buy material. Let's just make up a number like $1,000 worth of stuff. That $1,000 is now converted into tangible goods of some kind, right, that you have. But it doesn't do you any good. It's showing up as an asset on your balance sheet, but it doesn't do you really any good until you convert it into a product that you sell, and then you get paid by your customer. So that's the whole cycle. Now, the beauty of doubling inventory turns or improving inventory turns is that some of that inventory that you purchased in the past, you sell, you get paid for it, but you don't have to replace that inventory. So what happens is that inventory category on your balance sheet now becomes cash, which is a very nice thing. So it's cash that you invested in the past that you can now not have to reinvest, right, in that inventory. So that's the beauty of it, is working capital benefits. That's part of it. And there are other benefits too of reducing inventory. Space is a big motivation for a lot of companies. Space is always at a premium, and if you have to occupy a lot of your valuable real estate with storage, that's a challenge as well. Okay. Next question I had by way of introduction is doubling turns even possible? So was this a ploy to get you to click and attend this webinar, or
yes.
is it something? Well, yes,
but
okay. But
it depends on where you start, right?
Yeah.
It depends on where you start.
Right.
For some of you who are in the 15 turns a year club, don't pat yourselves in the back. You're doing better than many, but going from 15 to 30, that's a big deal. For many of you, friends of mine in the hospital business, where your inventory turns are frankly less than 1, well, doubling your inventory turns should be the work of 1 month, right? So depending on where you start, those of you who have a couple of inventory turns, doubling that to 4 to 6, not a big deal. Going from 10 to 20 gets a little more difficult. Going in the upper double digits gets more difficult and requires different strategies, not stuff you can, or not activities you can do or changes you can make inside the factory. You start looking outside. And I think we'll spend a couple of minutes talking about that.
Okay. And last comment, just to keep in mind, is you might think to yourself, oh my God, doubling our inventory turns affects thousands of parts. We just are talking to a potential client, almost 10,000 items, right, that they're managing, which is not unusual, right? That's not a especially high number. But the good news is this: the 80-20 rule applies really well to inventory. Classic application of that concept. That means that most of your dollars are not spread evenly across all of your items. They're concentrated on the 20% or the few items, the A items or the inventory code B items. And those are the ones you really need to focus on if you want to improve turns, because turning your nuts and bolts and washers twice as fast as you are today is not going to help you that much in terms of the savings. So that's very good news, right? That you don't have to get too overwhelmed, but focus on the 20% and not the 80% to get there. All right? Agree, Gerard?
Absolutely.
All right.
As a matter of fact, have you noticed, and this happened to me more than once, going into a company that is seeking to become a client, we go do an assessment, and they want to show us their progress with inventory. So they show us their vendor managed inventory or their initial company implementation, and it's almost always, no, I'll take that back, always, they start with hardware, the cheap stuff. And nothing wrong with starting there to do a low-risk project, but there is very little money there. When it comes to some of my friends in hospitals, I see many times that we start working on the nursing floors, and we do their clean utility rooms for inventory, $1,500, $1,800 worth of inventory. That's not where the money is. So if you want a quick hit and a quick success, nothing wrong. There's no sin in starting with the cheap stuff, but you need to move to where the money is as soon as possible.
Okay, Jesus has a question. How can I double my inventory turns on tool crib items? Well, let's hold on a minute. Let's go through our suggestions and see if there's anything that applies.
Yeah, right, and that's an excellent question, because we'll talk about that. By the way, for my friends in South America, I see a few from Brazil, and I believe there's somebody else from Argentina. You understand what I'm doing here. All right. So
you're going to share that with anyone else, or is that a secret?
Exactly. For everybody else, you may think I'm just, buzzing myself. No, there's just tea.
Okay. All right. So let's go to idea number one, or technique, method number one. It's called plan for every part. You may be familiar with this. And the idea here is that most companies, just about all of them, have some kind of database for material related information. But if you're using SAP or Oracle or some kind of MRP, ERP system, that information is not in one easy, flexible, very easy to find place. It's spread out across a variety of modules. Like you have an item master module, and you have a purchasing module, and you have a vendor database, and you have usage and inventory information, all in different places. So the idea with the plan for every part is if you want to double your inventory turns, you need to know where you are today and then be able to take action, right? Work on these items. And when things are hidden and spread out in traditional ERP, MRP systems, it's hard to do. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is create a plan for every part database in a format that makes it easy to analyze. Because remember, we said the 80-20 rule. Well, how do you know what the 80% and the 20% are? You need to have that kind of information. And I'll mention, I visited a company a year or two ago, and we talked about plan for every part, and we visited their plant, and they were doing it, right? They had a fairly massive Excel spreadsheet set up, and what they'd done is put in actual inventory levels, sorted it, and that way they were able to zero in like a laser beam on the highest value, highest cost items and focus their attention on those. And they said, this is amazing because we'd spent years just kind of struggling a little bit. And now we're able to actually, because you have to change something, right, to double your inventory turns, we were able to focus on the items that were going to give us the biggest payback, pretty easily. So that was good to see. I mean, that was.
Let me actually address a question from Alex because it goes directly to this. Convince hospitals to double their inventory turns. Yes, I have. And as a matter of fact, sometimes just awareness begins to bring the savings about. And I remember one case, one hospital, the perioperative services department, and we were just reviewing plan for every part. This is something we always do with the people that actually handle the inventory. And we also bring clinicians, which in the case of manufacturing, we work with inventory folks plus supervisors and operators, right? So we get a picture of how this part is used, how often it's used, and sometimes some of that knowledge is not documented, so you need the folks who use it. And just by reviewing plan for every part, the first time we put it together, as we're doing the cleanup, people begin to ask questions. Why do we have 5 kyphones when we do 1 kyphoplasty a month? Why do we have 6 months of inventory of these staples, endomechanical staples? Just by asking those questions, you begin to put plans in place to maybe move some of that inventory back up to a supplier, maybe send it to another sister hospital in the system. So yeah, have done that in hospitals, and PFEP, great first step. Is PFEP by itself going to help you optimize inventory? No, but how can you improve something that's not documented? You need to understand where you're starting, what is your strategy to make the improvement, and then take the steps. So PFEP is absolutely a great step to get started. So I think that addresses Alex's question there.
Okay, yeah, Alex says PFEP equals pain. Not that PFEP is painful, but most companies don't actually take advantage of this, right? And it's really not that hard. But it is time consuming, right?
It's time consuming, and someone has to do it. If you don't do it, then what's the option? It's not controlling inventory. And we never presume to tell you, here's this magical solution, right? Snap your fingers, click your heels 3 times, say lean 5 times, and life will change. No, it requires work. And this is part of the work. We always talk about identifying the problem, documenting the problem, then putting together strategies to solve it, and then making sure that you sustain it. So, yeah, it is work.
Okay. So very good. Now, what we're going to do here is engage you. I mean, we're already engaging you with your comments, but we're going to put up a couple survey questions. And the nice thing about this is that we can, it's anonymous, right? So you're not sharing any personal information, but we can see based on the group here where we stand with some of these items. So Ian, do you want to post that first poll? Basically, the question is, do you have a plan for every part database? We want to see with our little group here what the breakout is. How many of you have such a thing, meaning a flexible, easy to use, all in one place profile for every part number that you're managing?
And if you don't, there is right there one action item for you. I don't know who you have to convince or you have to convince yourself, but PFEP is an absolute must in any serious lean materials management replenishment system.
Okay, so it looks like half of you, a little more than half, do not have such a thing. And 38% it says do in Excel, which is the most common.
Yeah, most
and then some of you, like 18%, say yes in ERP, MRP. But when you say yes in ERP, MRP, I'm assuming that you have a view or some kind of way of seeing this information in one place, because it's usually not that easy, right? So,
and then again, things may have changed, right? The last ERP implementation I participated in was a while ago, but we did quite a bit of work with. I think we know SAP, we know Oracle, and I would not call any of the views they have a complete PFEP. So again, no secret here. You don't need to buy software from us. We're not selling software. We don't have one. We will be happy to tell you what the fields need to be, but it needs to be something flexible. And what we recommend is always using Excel. We are now aware of a commercial software that actually does PFEP, and they pull information from your ERP system, right, Richard? They have direct links to
up and down.
Yeah.
See, one of the problems with Excel that you can appreciate is that it's easy to extract information out of a legacy system and put it into Excel, but it's not so easy to get it back because these systems are designed to not make it easy to get it back, right?
Yeah,
and validation.
Again, work.
Yeah.
Right? Unquestionably, we're not going to pretend. And this system is Loop Supply Systems, right?
Yeah.
This is the first commercial software that we see, and we say, this actually does work. So take a look at them.
Okay. So here's another poll question related to the same topic. This would apply to those of you that are using PFEP. So close to half of you are not. So if you want to respond with not applicable, you could do that. But the question here is your tool that you're using actually maintained, like under some kind of revision control, or do you have a PFEP manager that validates the information going in? Is there a level of, say, procedure attached to your PFEP? Or is it just kind of an informal tool that your material folks are using, and pretty much anyone or the people using it can just make changes as they wish? So what is the level of control? That's the question we're trying to answer here.
Richard, while the answers are coming in, can I answer a question from Bruce?
Yeah.
Bruce, excellent question. And by the way, I should read it for everybody. How often should PFEP quantities be reviewed? It really depends on your own company, how stable your demand is. But normally, when you look at a line redesign, that's a good time to definitely to take a look at your PFEP quantities. Also, if there is anything in the line design parameters specifically associated with the volumes of the products, that's where you need to make changes. Now, let me tell you one case from a company that we work with, and what they do is they set up a line design, they review their line design once a year, so they make changes to their takt time once a year, and on every cycle they review their PFEP quantities, because, or better said, their Kanban quantities, because they have a system, a custom system. We have not been able to understand what or we have not been told their secret sauce is. Every time a Kanban card comes in, is scanned, and there is a decision engine that recalculates whether or not that Kanban card should be kept or a new one should be added into the system. So again, changes to line design, changes to product volumes.
Okay, so it looks like 2/3 of you are using PFEP. I guess we could say informally or not under strict control. And about a third of you that are using PFEP have more procedural control over that. So that's good to know too, right? Because clearly you do want, if this becomes part of your strategy for improving inventory turns, it does need to be controlled. And typically call that a PFEP manager or gatekeeper, right, for that information. Yeah. All right, shall we move on? Ready to move on?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think 11:20. All right. Okay, next one is called short delivery cycle. And this concept has to do with how you manage the flow of material within your facility. It could be outside of the facility as well. But what we're talking about here is the frequency of delivery of parts. So if we're trying to reduce inventory at the points of use, at workstations, or in the supermarkets, think of it this way. This is the analogy I was thinking of earlier. Think of a tube or a pipe, and you've got material coming in, right? And you have material going out. It's going out because you're building products and you're selling them. It's going in because you have suppliers delivering. And whatever's in that tube is your inventory that we're talking about. So one way to reduce the amount of inventory in that tube is to make that tube shorter, right? Make the tube shorter. So if you're delivering more quickly, more frequently, that's essentially what you're doing. So a practical example of what we're talking about has to do with how you set up your milk runs within your factories. In the past, we were used to thinking of these milk run efforts as being waste or being, handling, and trying to think of ways to reduce the amount of handling required. But there's another side of the coin, and that is that if you want to have less inventory at the points of use, there's no option. It's just the law of the universe. You have to deliver in smaller quantities more often. Right? That's all there is to it. So if you want to reduce inventory at points of use, you have to be willing to deliver in smaller quantities and more frequently. And typically a ratio of the inventory that you have at a station vis-a-vis or in comparison to your delivery cycle should be 4-to-1, 6-to-1, 8-to-1. In other words, if you have a shift worth of material, you should be delivering that material every hour and a half, 90 minutes, something in that ratio, if you want to guarantee, especially in a mixed model environment, that you're essentially shortage-proofing the line. Because remember that usage of material in a mixed model environment is not steady, it's not level, it's variable depending on the units coming down that line. So you don't want to get yourself in the position where you're cutting it too close. So what we've seen in the most successful delivery systems is they have that pretty big ratio difference while still maintaining a very modest amount of inventory at the points of use by having rapid or fast delivery cycles. Okay. Same thing applies to material in your supermarkets on the factory floor. Same kind of philosophy. In fact, that's a kind of a lean slogan that Taiichi Ohno came up with. It's move quickly and carry a light load. The idea of a water strider. So move quickly, like the insect skimming along the top of the water, move quickly and carry a light load. So this is the application of that.
Now, before you get all upset and say, but that is going to require more people, there is a price to be paid. We are not going to sit here and tell you that you can get all these benefits for free. There is a price to be paid. And if you choose not to do frequent delivery cycles, then you're going to have to pay the price on having more inventory at the line, right? With its concomitant investment and the problems of obsolescence and space, right? So there's a price, that's not free. Or you're going to have to deal with shortages. Line stoppages are not free either. So there is a price to be paid. Now, are we telling you that you should deliver every 30 minutes? No. You need to pick a delivery cycle as short as possible. That is by far the best way to make your line shortage proof. Everything else is valid, increasing inventory or improving on containerization. All those are valid strategies, but by far the delivery frequency, the number of times you deliver materials or you're present at the line delivering materials is definitely critical. Now, I need to address a very important question from Wilson.
Yeah, I saw that. Wilson
Wilson in Uruguay. Sí, Estoy tomando mate y soy argentino.
Okay. The secret is out. Mate. That's why you're talking so fast, right? Okay. So short delivery cycle. And just a case history, I think it's worth sharing with you. Toyota Material Handling in Columbus, Indiana is probably one of the best places we've seen with a really tightly integrated, well-functioning, zero shortage kind of environment with a lot of challenges, a lot of options, a lot of different models. And their inventory at their points of use is about a shift, right? Or 4 hours, 5 hours, something very modest, the amount of inventory they have at a workstation. But their delivery cycle is around 37 minutes. And when we first saw that, we had the same reaction maybe some of you are commenting on here, I think, which was, wow, that's like crazy fast. Why so often? You're occupying all these tuggers all the time, driving around. Yes, but what they're able to do is two things. One is reduce that inventory pretty dramatically compared to a lot of places, and basically never have part shortages for delivery issues. I mean, they could have other issues, right? But when we see that and we question what they're doing, generally we find out that they're doing them for very good reasons, right? And so we'll just share the fact that this isn't something we're just making up. These are some of the best companies in the world are doing this short delivery cycle. Okay, so we have some surveys. Let's have some survey questions. Ian, you want to shoot those up? First one is, do you have designed delivery routes? So a designed delivery route would be typically a fixed cycle, a method whereby people are picking, other people are delivering, and that delivery route is on a timed cycle, certain number of cycles during the day, that kind of thing. Standardized to specific locations.
Yeah. Well,
as opposed to we'll bring it, raise your hand and we'll bring you some material.
Exactly.
Or we'll go over and we'll look, kind of like a hospital does, right? We'll go and we'll look.
The part level system.
Yeah. We'll go look and see what's needed, and then we'll bring some more material.
So while we're waiting for the answers, let's take a look at a couple of the questions, Richard.
Okay.
What do we have? What if you don't have that many resources to deliver? As I said, it becomes a question of balance. It's not that many resources. We don't know how many. That's why designing your delivery route is key. Designing a delivery route is not that difficult. It's a little time consuming, but you design it once. With that, you figure out if your delivery cycles are coupled or decoupled, meaning picking, delivering, or picking and delivering. And you also calculate staffing. We teach that in class. Once you figure that out, then you start moving the knobs, right? If you see that to deliver materials every 45 minutes, you require 12 people, you don't have the 12 people, then from that point on, you begin to change that. Now, as you decrease the delivery frequency, then you know that you need to increase the amount of inventory. That then is going to require more space at the line. That makes sense?
In hospitals, for example, nurses will tell us that they don't have the time or the resources to take a Kanban card and put it in a box, right? That's asking too much. But they have time during the day to get on the phone and scream about part shortages and supply shortages, right? And go chasing stuff that they're missing. That they have time for. But the time to take a card out of a box and put it into a collection spot is too much to ask.
What's the price, right? And are you willing to pay?
Yeah.
And I have one from Alex. What is your experience in increasing frequency? Well, that's an interesting point, because too much of a good thing could be harmful, right? And we could not claim to have the golden rule for your situation, because maybe your plant is gigantic and delivering every 37 minutes, like our friends at your material handling, could require too long or too much transportation. Definitely for you to consider in your route design. Remember that when you design the route, you're going to include everything. all the time for the tugger to travel from departure to return, all the stops, all the number of bins being delivered and retrieved. So yes, you have to consider that too, and that could be too much of a good thing could become waste also. So careful with that.
Okay, I don't see the result of the last poll. It's like disappeared. So maybe go on to the next one. That question is, what is your current frequency of delivery to the line? In other words, how often do your material handlers or your tuggers take that journey if you're using that method? Variable, the three choices would be variable, so as required, there we go, or greater than more often than once per day, or greater than one day, so a couple times a week or multiple times per day. Let's see what we say. Variable, 100% so far is variable. Okay. All right, 80% variable, multiple times per day. Only 8%, 15%, multiple times per day, 19. So most of you, so far, the numbers keep bouncing around. Most of you are variables. I assume that means as needed, right?
Yeah, ad hoc.
Ad hoc, not on a fixed schedule.
Designed.
It's the taxi cab approach versus
exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And again, this is another example we use in class. The difference between the metro train and the taxi cab, right? The taxi is super flexible, right, but expensive, while the metro train is a lot less expensive, but it's more rigid. When you look at those examples within the context of a material delivery system, you need to consider the tugger, right? The tugger train delivering to multiple points along the way is like a subway route, right? It is inflexible. So every so many minutes, every couple of hours, every 3 hours, twice a day, whatever you choose, that tugger departs, delivers, picks, returns, and starts over. And in the case of the taxi cab for a plant, will be something like a fork truck, right? That you pick something up once, deliver it once, and then you come back.
Okay, we're ready to move on then?
I guess we are.
Okay. And by the way, Carlos, how you doing? Long time.
Danny. Variable can mean by Kanban signals. Well, it can, but that's not something we recommend. What we recommend is that the Kanban signal, in general terms, that the Kanban signal be accumulated at a pickup and drop point and then picked up by the tugger train. That is primarily what we're looking for.
Yeah. And Alex says, is frequency a result of internal policy? That's a good question. I would say yes. It's a decision, right? It's a decision that they make, that a company makes regarding the frequency, but it is related to a ratio, I would say, of the inventory goal that they have. So for example, at Toyota, their goal was about a shift or less of material at a station. And then a ratio of that was that 37 minutes. That gave them that coverage that we talked about. Also at Toyota, they took the working day and divided it by this magical number, right, 12, that gave them that 37 minutes. So they divided the working day into 12 equal cycles. But basically, it was a decision, right? It wasn't a calculation.
It's primarily a decision. Of course, you have to do the calculations, and as a line designer and materials designer, you have to provide management with the data. But in the end, it's a decision based on how much you want to afford. Going back to a prior question, do I have the resources, right?
Yep. Okay, next topic. Remember, we're only covering 4, so we've done 2. This is a big one, though, in terms of improving inventory turns. It has to do with supplier replenishment or supply chain, if you want to use that term, and how you manage your supply chain. Because remember, the amount of inventory on the factory floor we can do all kinds of things to reduce it, but it's not where most of your inventory is. Most of your inventory is going to be in something called a warehouse, right? And of course, over time, you want to reduce that, and maybe you can get to suppliers delivering directly to your supermarkets, et cetera. But for most companies, most of the dollars are in something called the warehouse, related to outside suppliers. So clearly, being able to connect your outside suppliers to your warehouse or to your facility is going to be a big key to improving inventory turns, right? That's where the money is. So this is not something that you can wave a magic wand. It's not even under your control as much as the internal material is. It's going to be kind of one supplier at a time. But what you're going to try to do is connect those suppliers via a pull signal of some kind. And just as we said before, move quickly with carry a light loads. In other words, more frequent deliveries from these outside suppliers. And in that way, again, no magic wand, but getting those suppliers to deliver more frequently at a reasonable cost, because of course the red flag that you raise is, oh, my transportation costs are going to go crazy. So again, this is why this has to be worked through carefully. Now, our gold standard
work through using plan for every part, because one of the things you can do using plan for every part is to sort by supplier location, put together a route, put together your first route, and then start working with bringing suppliers on board. Bringing suppliers on board is not for beginners. We would never recommend that you do that tomorrow if you're just getting started. Get your PFEP done and make sure that your inventory system within the four walls of your plant is working really well. It needs to be predictable to tie in suppliers.
Yes. So your ability to take advantage of this is going to depend a lot on your circumstances. For example, if you're in a remote city somewhere in Brazil, for example, wink, wink, then your supply chain is going to be a different challenge than if you're in the middle of the Midwest in the United States, where a lot of your suppliers are within driving distance, right? Or Germany, maybe more extreme example. You're in Germany, which is not that much bigger than the state of Colorado, and yet it's dense, with manufacturing and suppliers, where you can actually put them on that kind. Or the ultimate example probably is Japan, where a lot of the, even smaller than Germany, where a lot of the local suppliers are literally across the street or in the same town. So your ability to take advantage of pull and frequent deliveries is going to vary a lot. And some of you are just going to have to live with the fact that you're in not as a central location, and you're just going to have to deal with more inventory, right, to overcome the uncertainties.
And for some of you, this discussion may have to morph into becoming excellent warehouse managers. One of our clients is a German company that is in the city of Cuautla in Mexico, and they don't have any suppliers in close proximity. Pretty much everything is either imported or comes from far and away. So for them, tying suppliers using a Kanban signal, very, very difficult. So in their case, we had to spend a lot of time designing an outstanding warehouse. I mean, they do a great job, these folks in Cuautla. And they had to become excellent inventory managers. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So again, our gold standard Toyota material handling is receiving material from Japan, right? Quite a lot of material from Japan, actually. But they also have worked very hard over the last 20 years to develop local suppliers. And by local, we mean in the Midwest. And they've set up a milk run system with their own vehicles that goes daily, right, through fixed routes and picks up full containers and drops off empty containers. Of course, these suppliers are notified with some lead time to know exactly what to provide. And as a result, then, they're achieving really good inventory turns because they're controlling a big chunk of their inventory dollars with their own milk run system. I think it's about 12 different milk runs, 12 trucks. It's quite extensive, though, because from the center of Indiana, if you're familiar with U.S. geography, they're going all the way into Minnesota and all the way down to Georgia, which is quite a big territory, quite a big chunk of that center of the country. But on a daily basis, they're doing their routes. And of course, there are things like snowstorms, right, that happen, and unforeseen things that add to the risk, but they're able to manage that adequately, and they're achieving really excellent inventory turns, primarily, I would say, through that technique. And then doing, in terms of managing their Japanese material, they're actually leveling the shipments that they're receiving from Japan, meaning mixing their requirements. So they're not getting a month's worth of an item from Japan. I think they have almost daily shipments coming out of Japan with mixed items in these shipping containers, so that although there's some packing and unpacking required, they're able to reduce that total inventory even coming from Japan. But that is a 5 or 6 week kind of pipeline coming from Japan. So this is a big one. Supplier relationships, plan for every part, as Gerard said, great way to start. Find the big opportunities first and work on those, because it's a negotiation. It's working with these suppliers. It's coming up with ideally containers that can be recycled, moved back and forth as the signal, et cetera. A lot of issues related to that, but that's where a lot of the dollars are. All right, take a survey. Ready?
Indeed.
All right. This is just one question here. It's just simply, do you have suppliers on a pull system? If you say no, it means that you're probably sending to your suppliers purchase orders coming out of an MRP system, scheduled deliveries, those kind of things. And a pull system would be a signal of some kind based on usage, right? With a forecast, so they know what to do, but an empty container or empty rack that they refill. So I'm suspecting, even before I see the results, that a lot of you are MRP driven with outside suppliers. That's extremely common, but I'm seeing, so it's about half of you.
While we're waiting for the poll to be completed, I see a question from Stuart. It goes back to the prior topic, but I'm tempted to address this one. Should delivery frequency be tied to tag time? And I believe Alex answered. This is one of the answers I like the least, saying yes and no, but it's correct in this case, because normally when we're designing a material delivery system, we don't pay attention to tag time unless we do. And for example, if we're going to design a system and start by saying, okay, we need to deliver materials in as short time as possible, let's start with 1 hour delivery cycles, but tag time is 8 hours, not much of a point in doing that. So normally we don't pay attention to tag time when it comes to the Kanban side. When it comes to everything else, and normally 75% Kanban, and we're beginning to see a shift on that, but normally 75-80% Kanban, then we're going to have sequence materials and kits and things like that. For sequence materials, for kits, yes, we pay attention to tag time because we want to have so many tag times worth of inventory available to the line. Hopefully that answers the question. And yes, Toyota has Toyota has a lot of clout, but these plants we are telling you about that we partner with, they don't walk around with a big stick. They really use the carrot approach, and I've seen it. I'm not a Toyota apologist. We don't work for them, but Richard, tell me if that's your impression. I don't think they use the stick more than they use the carrot.
No, they even talk about how we make sure that our suppliers are profitable. We want to make sure our suppliers are profitable.
They provide
not wildly profitable.
Yeah, they provide continuous improvement support to their suppliers, and Toyota pays for that transportation because it's best for them. And they were not huge when they started this. They were the smallest company in their market, and through consistency and constancy of purpose, they became the number one. When everybody was laying people off during 2001, 2008, they stuck with their people and they came out ahead. They're number one now, pretty much unreachable in their industry.
Yep. So
and
it's
again,
unusual.
We're not telling you go buy a Toyota. You will buy what you think you need to buy. But all I can tell is report what we see when we go visit them, and they have been very generous with us in letting us take a look at how they do things. Because from our point of view, if you think about it, it's really important that whatever we teach to our students is in concert with the best practices of the best, right? And nobody can, argue with the fact that Toyota is,
Okay, so it looks like this is a great future opportunity for a lot of you, because more than half do not have suppliers on, I'm assuming, any kind of pull system. It's all MRP driven.
Yeah.
And then of those of you that do, the vast majority have less than 25% of your suppliers on a pull. So good opportunity. Again, go back to plan for every part, look at where some of those heavy hitters are in terms of inventory dollars. And but again, it's something you need to work on continually. It's not easy, right? It's not an easy fix. It's negotiated. It's really thinking it through. But if you don't give up, then you'll get there, right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Richard?
I made that up. Yeah, I just made that up. Isn't that incredible?
Richard, we're killing it. We are at 11:45 with one question to go.
We just fill up the time available, right? It doesn't matter how many topics we pick. The time will get consumed. Right. Last one is reducing MCT as a way of
manufacturing cycle time. You know, we are big fans of Kaizen. Kaizen, best thing ever. All right. But everything starts with a good line design, a solid line design that accounts for a good materials delivery system. So it has to start with line design. And why manufacturing cycle time? Because manufacturing cycle time, that total cycle time from beginning to end, that one is directly related to the amount of work in process inventory that you have on the line. Now, if you produce nails or screws, probably not a big deal. But if some of you produce tractors, even the green ones, right? If you produce tractors or large piece of equipment or aircraft like some of our clients, or fork trucks like some of our clients, container pickers, big things, one unit of work in process inventory is a lot of money, right? And for those of you who do not control work in process inventory through design, you're going to control it by going around and seeking to eliminate inventory until you starve a workstation. Don't do that. Design your work in process inventory, and the shorter your manufacturing cycle time, the less work in process inventory you need. And that is how this should work.
Okay, Alex is asking line design. Do you mean layout? Well, layout is an element of line
it's the result of that line design. Yeah. But to get there, you have to follow the roadmap, right? To get there, you have to understand what the products and processes are, the process flow diagrams and the process flow map and your process flow matrix and your standard times, and you calculate TACT, and you calculate number of resources by taking standard time weighted divided by TACT with a number of resources. Then you figure out your in-process Kanbans and your balancing techniques, and then you put in place a conceptual line design. And from there, you start working on the layout. So
the layout kind of happens at the end, right? Or near the end of the whole process.
That's, by the way, lesson 16 out of 20.
Yeah, there we go.
Conceptual line design.
Okay, so what does the MCT have to do with materials or inventory turns? Well, the issue here is that there's a direct relationship between this pipeline that we mentioned earlier. So imagine you have a tube or a pipe. If you can make that pipe shorter by reducing manufacturing cycle time, then the amount of work in process inventory you have in that pipe is going to be proportionally less, right? So if you cut MCT in half, then you've reduced WIP by half. There's a direct proportional relationship.
Absolutely.
So that can be a big number. Now, in the past, 20 years ago, when we first started doing this kind of work, line design work, it was a little bit like, pardon the expression, it was like shooting ducks in a barrel, right? In other words, there were a lot of big opportunities.
So easy.
Yeah, there are opportunities out there. You go to a company and it's all MRP driven, departmentalized manufacturing, lead time of weeks.
Pallets everywhere, gaylords.
Right. So if you take that and you connect it together, get rid of the departments, connect that work together into a flow, you can go from weeks to days without breathing too heavily. So the inventory savings there were huge. I mean, huge, millions, maybe billions, right? If you go across all these companies of dollars.
Now you people are making the work harder for us.
Yeah, right? So that's less common. That's less common today.
So now I don't think anybody argues with a flow line these days. I mean, some of you still may have a job shops, and a job shop is a little more unique, but you can still do flow in a job shop. I don't think anybody argues with sequential progressive lines when it comes to assembly and in tying, linking, and balancing those processes. Your balancing may not be optimal, your linking may not be optimal, you may lack information or documentation or graphic work instructions, but nobody argues with that. Back 20-some years ago, Richard, when we started, 24 years ago, when we started, for some folks, the idea of linking and balancing was completely foreign.
Mind-blowing, right?
Wow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Alex, I have a comment too. Little's Law. Alex mentions Little's Law. And I'll have to do a Google search on Little's Law, but I believe it was the more stuff you have in a process, the longer it takes to get through the system, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about here is actually the opposite of that, or the other side of the coin is if you design the process to be shorter, then the less stuff you'll have in the system rather than the other way around. I think Little's Law, you might be tempted to remove inventory from the system, but what we're saying is, yes, but do that through a good line design.
Exactly.
As opposed to just lowering the water by removing the inventory. You need to have a good design, and then the inventory will take care of itself. Right? You don't.
Yeah, Alex, you're correct. Works both ways, but maybe we call it little loss to the -1. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, but good point. Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah, excellent point. Thank you. And thank you all for sharing, because everybody can read all the comments, and we do not presume to have all the answers, and we're always thankful for your comments.
Yep. Okay, so let's answer a few questions here, survey questions.
Yep.
So reducing MCT through good line design. And the first question here is flow manufacturing, or kind of what we're talking about here, really a part of your company's DNA, or company's DNA? That just means the way you do things, right? Is it part of your company's standard operating procedure to design flow lines and connect processes together, as opposed to departmentalized manufacturing, MRP-driven manufacturing with a lot of work orders and batch? Let's see if we can answer that. Is it posted here?
Are we getting that?
Well, I think I can do it here. Is flow manufacturing part of your company's DNA? There we go. Got it. So we'll wait for the response. You have one more question after this as well?
Yeah. Danny, does proper safety stock calculations important? Yes, they are, especially if you do have a warehouse. We would not recommend using safety stock for the supermarkets and for the line. If you're stuck with MRP, we have in the past fooled MRP to make it believe that safety stock was Kanban. I don't think that's necessary anymore. That's just old school stuff. But yeah, if you have a warehouse, you need to keep that safety stock in place and run that warehouse via MRP until you can start tying suppliers into your warehouse.
Okay, so it looks like 2/3 of you say yes, but limited. So not everywhere. 5% said yes, so pretty much across the board. And then 21% of you said No. No, I don't know why it's no. In other words, there might be good reasons why it's no.
Yeah.
Depends on your processes and your situation. But in any case, if it's no and you can implement flow manufacturing, that's low hanging fruit, right? That's something that that you should look into. I mean, that's a huge thing. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Based on what you know about your environment, there we go. Would it be possible to cut MCT in half? Which is another way of saying, could we cut WIP in half through well-designed flow lines?
While waiting for that answer, I see a question from Scott. Would you recommend to separate runners versus strangers? Scott, you're going to have to clarify this one, because Richard, you get that question? Separate runners. I am going to assume there that we're talking about a decoupled delivery route.
I think it's what we sometimes call dogs and cats, right? So standard products versus
yes, the cats and dogs line. Yeah, mixed model flow is sometimes likely to leave some products out of the flow, cats and dogs. In cats and dogs, the strangers, as you may be calling them here, Scott, if I completely misunderstand your question or giving you the wrong answer, just let us know. It depends on how much they, for lack of a better term, screw up the flow. Because every now and again you might be able to send a product that is not very good with the flow, but it uses the same processes. So, but if they're very, very different, now normally you need to separate the line. Sometimes some of them may have such different processes that you have to build them in a job shop manner. Very low volume, a lot of machining. In that case, you're not flowing units, very likely you're flowing batches. But
okay,
still think flow.
All right, so good news here. 29% of you say it's a low-hanging fruit opportunity to improve MCT. That's good news, right? So, bad news and good news.
Yeah, of all the stuff we're discussing in this work, in this webinar, definitely BFEP, go after that. BFEP is very important. Reducing your manufacturing cycle time, also very actionable. Redesign that line and reduce that manufacturing cycle time. Bringing your suppliers on board, that takes a little more time. But the other three, that's something you need to consider doing relatively quickly.
Okay. So great. I've enjoyed this. It's been great. A lot of great comments too. I don't know what we can do about getting back to all of you, because I know there are a lot of questions that we didn't answer as well.
Sorry folks, if we don't answer them all, we'll do the best we can to answer later, but please keep the lines of communication open. We're always very thankful for you participating in these webinars, and keep giving us your suggestions. We love hearing from you, and we want to make sure that we are addressing your comments and concerns, because as you know, we're very focused in what we teach and what we consult in. We are the mixed model line design guys. We are the mixed model material management guys. We're the lean hospital guys. We don't do a million things. So stay with us. Let us know what you want us to address, and we love hearing from you. To all of you, thank you for being with us. And Richard, do we have an offer for?
We do have an offer. Yeah.
Excellent.
Now, all the things that we've talked about are covered in a lot more detail, actually, in our online course. So it's Mixed Model Material Management. So it's an online course. It's about 8 hours. It's not a minor detail. It's about 8 hours, 18 lessons. So there's a lesson on plan for every part, et cetera, with quizzes. So it's pretty in-depth. And the offer is this. If you take that course, sign up for that course, which is at leandesigninstitute.com. You'll see it and find out more about it, leandesigninstitute.com. You can also, we will also give you, Ian, do we have an offer? I think we do. The Memory Jogger program related to that course. So Memory Jogger, what that is, it's pretty cool. It's a year's worth, that's 50, so almost a year, right? A year's worth of mini lessons. Yeah. 50 mini lessons that you'll get once a week on this same topic of mixed model material management, just to refresh your memory, keep you abreast of the topics that you're covering in this course. So we'll throw that in as well if you sign up within a relatively short time, which is by the end of the day tomorrow. Right. So there we go.
So we're giving you a code for that. Please go ahead, sign up for the class. Let us know what you think about the class. We're always seeking to improve our classes. And I think that's all we have. And we also have a workshop that we're going to be teaching at Toyota. We have 2 classes left this year at Toyota. Please make sure you check our webpage to see there. I'd love to see your faces one of these days. Even Wilson from Uruguay.
Yeah, come on up. Come on up. I think this one's the next material management class is in November.
Okay.
So you could even get some skiing in. Or at least have Thanksgiving here. Okay.
Right. Thank you all. Appreciate you being here. Salud.
Bye now.
Bye.